Welcome back, everyone. I want to start today with something a little personal. This channel is about cleaning, organizing, and decluttering. That is what I love sharing, and that is what most of you come here for. But a few months ago, I started getting a specific kind of message in the comments, and it has been on my mind ever since. Women writing to ask how I manage all of this alone. How I keep a house, tend a garden, stay on top of everything at my age without help. And underneath that question, sometimes said directly and sometimes not, something that sounds like, are you actually well? Are you actually healthy? How does your body allow you to do the things you describe? Today I want to answer that honestly, because I think the answer is genuinely useful, and because I think the connection between how you feel physically and how you are able to live and maintain your home and your daily life is closer than most people realize. A clean, organized house requires a person who has the energy to maintain it. The habits I want to share today are the habits that give me that energy. I am not a doctor, I am not a nutritionist or a fitness professional. I am a 72-year-old woman who spent 34 years as a school librarian, has been living alone for nearly 10 years, and who has figured out through a great deal of trial and a great deal of error what actually works for a body like mine at a stage of life like this. That is all I can offer, but I think it is worth offering. These are my diet and exercise habits, honestly shared, from a woman who is genuinely well at 72 and intends to stay that way. The honest starting point, I was not always well. I want to begin here because I think the story only makes sense if you understand where it started. And where it started was not good. For most of my adult life, I did not think particularly carefully about my body. I was busy. I had a career and a family and a house to manage, and if I am being truthful, physical health was always the thing I would address later, when things calmed down, when there was more time. There was never more time. The house was always demanding something. The job was always demanding something. The body got what was left over, which was usually not much. After Robert passed, when I was 63 and suddenly managing everything alone, the gap between how I was treating my body and what my body actually needed became impossible to ignore. I was tired in a way that sleep did not fix. My joints were stiff in a way that felt like early age, not just morning stiffness. I had been eating whatever was easiest rather than whatever was right, and my energy reflected it. I was surviving my days rather than living them. The changes I made did not happen all at once. They happened slowly as I figured out what actually made a difference and what was simply well-intentioned noise. What follows is what remained after years of figuring out. On food, eating to actually nourish rather than simply to eat. The most important shift I made in how I eat was the simplest and the one I resisted longest, because it required admitting that what I had been doing for decades was not working. I had been eating whatever was convenient at whatever moment I happened to be hungry, with no particular thought about whether what I was eating was giving my body anything useful. The change began with breakfast. For years, my breakfast was toast, sometimes with jam and coffee. It was quick and familiar and completely inadequate. Within an hour or two of that breakfast, I was tired in a way that made the morning feel heavy. I had attributed this to age. It was not age. It was insufficient fuel. I now begin every morning with protein. 2 eggs with whatever vegetable is available, usually spinach or the previous evening's leftover roasted vegetables. Sometimes Greek yogurt with a handful of walnuts and some berries. Occasionally cottage cheese alongside a piece of whole grain toast. The details vary, but the principle does not. The first thing I eat contains real protein and real nutrition, not just carbohydrate and habit. The effect of this change took about 2 weeks to become fully apparent, and then it was unmistakable. The mid-morning heaviness disappeared. I had sustained energy through the morning in a way I genuinely had not experienced in years. I could work in the garden from 8 until noon without the energy flagging that used to arrive by 10. I could carry things without my hands tiring. The change was not dramatic or sudden. It was simply consistent. And consistency over weeks turned into a genuinely different quality of physical daily life. The second important change in how I eat is what I have stopped eating rather than what I have added. This is less glamorous to describe, but I think it matters just as much. I stopped eating the foods that reliably made me feel worse. The processed crackers and cookies that I kept in the house for no better reason than that I had always kept them. The foods I ate out of habit rather than hunger. The late evening snacking that disrupted my sleep without providing anything useful. I am not rigid about this. I eat what I enjoy. But I pay attention now to how different foods make me feel, and I have gradually stopped choosing the ones that consistently make me feel worse. This sounds obvious, and perhaps it is, but I was 50 years into adulthood before I applied it with any real consistency. Tell me in the comments, have you ever made a deliberate change to how you eat and noticed a genuine difference in how you felt physically? I am curious what others have found, because I think this is one of those areas where personal experience varies more than most health advice accounts for. The third thing I want to say about food is water, specifically water before coffee in the mornings. I have mentioned this before in other conversations, but I include it here because I think it is genuinely one of the most impactful things I do for how I feel. A full glass of water before anything else in the morning, before coffee, before food, before standing up fully. The difference in morning joint stiffness and morning mental clarity that this single habit produces is even now surprising to me. I arrived at it by accident and have never given it up. On movement, gentle, deliberate, and entirely without what most people think of as exercise. I want to say something that might sound surprising coming from a video about staying fit at 72. I do not exercise. Not in the way that word is usually meant. I do not go to a gym. I do not follow a workout routine. I do not do anything that I would describe to someone else as exercise and have them picture what I mean accurately. What I do is move consistently, daily, in ways that are appropriate for my body at my age, rather than designed for a body 30 years younger. Before I continue, a quick word. If you enjoy this channel and want to support my work, just look directly below the video player, right next to the subscribe button, and click the button that says Join. That is how you become a Smart Organizer. Smart Organizers members get exclusive videos, a loyalty badge in the comments, and custom channel emojis. I would love to have you there. My morning movement routine takes approximately 10 minutes, and it happens before any other physical demand of the day. It is seated and standing, gentle and slow, and its purpose is not fitness in the conventional sense, but simply returning my body to its full range of motion before I ask it to do anything else. I begin in a chair, slow circles with my shoulders forward and then back for about 30 seconds each direction. Then slow knee lifts, one leg at a time, as though marching very slowly in place for about a minute. This warms the hip joints in a way that makes everything else easier. I stand at the kitchen counter, holding it lightly, and do shallow knee bends, not deep squats, just enough flexion to engage the muscles around the knees. 30 seconds. Then I lean gently forward in a doorway, my hands on the frame at shoulder height, and let my chest open. This undoes what 8 hours of sleep does to the posture of the upper back and chest. I hold it for 30 seconds. Then I walk slowly through the house, every room, just to get the whole body moving in space, not for any particular purpose, just to be moving, to be upright, to feel where the stiffness still is and let it work its way through. That is the morning movement. 10 minutes, no floor, no mat, no pain, no equipment. The result of doing this consistently for several years is that I no longer wake up stiff in the way I used to. I get out of bed and I am ready to move rather than needing to warm up for an hour before feeling capable. That shift alone has changed the quality of my mornings more than almost anything else I have changed. Please subscribe if you are not yet subscribed. Every week I share what I've learned about maintaining a home and a daily life that genuinely serves you at this stage of life. The second form of movement in my day is the garden. I want to include this because I think it is often underestimated as physical activity, particularly by people who are used to thinking of exercise as something with a particular form and intensity. The garden requires me to kneel and stand repeatedly, to carry weight, to work with my hands in sustained physical effort, to move my body in ways that are varied and unpredictable, rather than the same motion repeated, which I believe is better for a body at this age than repetitive exercise would be. I spend between 30 minutes and 2 hours in the garden most mornings, depending on the season and what needs doing. This is not something I do for its health benefits, though I appreciate them. I do it because I love my garden, and I love the particular quality of outdoor physical work. But the body benefits from it regardless of my reasons for being there, and I have come to see the garden as one of the most important contributors to my physical well-being. Tell me in the comments, do you have a physical activity that you do primarily because you love it, rather than because it is good for you? I think these are often the most sustainable forms of movement, precisely because the motivation is not discipline, but genuine enjoyment. The third form of movement is simply the maintenance of my house. This connects directly to what this channel is about, and I mention it here deliberately, because I think people underestimate how physically demanding consistent home maintenance is, and how keeping that maintenance active and daily, rather than letting it accumulate into occasional large efforts, is better for the body as well as the home. Wiping surfaces, carrying baskets of laundry, moving furniture occasionally to clean behind it, tending to things before they become difficult. These are not exercises, but they are physical acts that require a body that is capable and that keep a body capable through regular use. The woman who tends her home daily is using her body daily in ways that contribute to her physical health whether or not she thinks of it that way. On sleep, the habit that makes all the other habits work. I want to include sleep because I think it is the most underrated element of physical well-being at this age, and because I made changes to how I manage sleep that had effects I had not anticipated. For years, I slept poorly and assumed this was simply what sleeping at 60-something and then 70-something felt like. I woke frequently. I did not feel rested by morning. I had the kind of tiredness that does not respond to more time in bed, because the time in bed is not producing genuine rest. Two changes made the most difference. The first was the morning light habit. Stepping outside within the first half hour of waking every morning, regardless of weather. I had not expected this to affect sleep, but it did, within 2 weeks, reliably and noticeably. I understand now that this has to do with the body's internal rhythms and the way light signals to the body where it is in the day. I do not fully understand the mechanism. I understand the effect. The second was the evening closing ritual, the deliberate quiet time that ends my day. The kitchen closed, the house settled, a period of reading rather than screens, the glass of water set out for morning. This is something I do for the house and for my peace of mind, but I have come to understand it is also something I do for my sleep. The body going to rest in an organized, quiet environment. After a day that was closed properly rather than simply stopped, sleeps differently than a body that collapses into bed from an unfinished evening. The quality of my sleep now is genuinely better than it was 10 years ago. I did not expect that to be possible, and it is perhaps the thing I am most grateful for in how my health has changed. Tell me in the comments, do you struggle with sleep? And if so, have you found anything that genuinely helps? I think sleep is the health topic that women in our situation talk about least honestly and most need to discuss, because poor sleep makes everything else harder, and good sleep makes everything else more possible. On mental health, the habits I did not know I was building. I want to end with this because I think physical health and mental health are not as separate as most health conversations treat them, and because living alone at this age presents specific mental health challenges that are worth naming directly. The mornings I spend in the garden are not just physical activity. They are also mental quiet, a daily period of genuine presence in an environment I love, doing work that produces visible results and requires real attention. The kind of attention that crowds out the circling thoughts that can otherwise dominate a solitary morning. The 4 minutes of deliberate mental work I do before my day begins, the small arithmetic problem, the specific memory retrieved, the new words practiced, the picture of the day going well. These are not just cognitive exercises. They're a way of beginning the day actively rather than passively, of taking hold of my own mind before the day's events take hold of it. The social connections I maintain by being the one who calls, who suggests, who initiates. These are not just social obligations. They are genuinely nourishing in a way that affects how I feel physically and how I move through the days between those connections. I am 72 years old. I live alone in a house I've lived in for over 30 years. I tend it every day in small ways, and I tend my body every day in small ways. And the result of all those small, consistent daily acts is a life that is most days genuinely good. not free of difficulty, not without its harder stretches, but substantively, reliably good. That is what I wanted to share today, even though it is not the usual topic for this channel, because I think it belongs here, alongside the cleaning and the organizing and the decluttering, as part of the same larger project, building and maintaining a life that is actually worth living in, from the state of the house to the state of the body to the quality of the mornings. I want to hear from you now. In the comments, tell me which of these habits you most recognize, or which one you are most curious to try. Tell me also, if you are comfortable sharing, how you are doing physically at your age. These conversations are among the most valuable ones on this channel, and I read every single one. And please subscribe if you are not yet subscribed. Every week I share honest, practical conversations about living well at this stage of life, whether the topic is the kitchen counter or the morning routine or something in between. I will see you next week.